Hello, my name is Dr. Hallett. I'm a lecturer in history at the University of Leeds. In the last podcast, I gave you an idea of how to manage the transition between A-level and university. And that allowed us to see the ways in which you can acclimatise to the university environment, think about progressing and refining your skills, and settling in general to a university community, which I called a research community. Now in this podcast, I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to think about the ways that you can progress from stage to stage at university, refine your skills further, and think about the types of behaviour or even the types of personality you'll need to generate to survive and succeed as a history student at university. You found your feet at university, you've met friends, and you've even got to know some of the departmental tutors. This presentation is meant to guide you through the next more sophisticated stages of belonging to a history community. There's no template to what a history degree offers, but there are certain key characteristics and key stages, if you like, towards how a history degree progresses. And I'm just going to give you a very quick picture, initially, of the three stages, as I see it, in my experience as a history lecturer, as of the development of students as they progress. So year one, I would say, from experience, is all about acclimatisation. It's about getting to know this community, learning new skills, and reveling in the array of topics and approaches that you might get as a history student. Year two, I'll be talking about as a form of development, where you start to shape your identity as a historian, define the types of history that you're interested in, the approaches, and even start seeing yourself, in some degrees, as a specialist. So I'll talk about that developmental process, which is often still an experimental stage in your history degree, but one which is getting more and more focused. My final part of the presentation today will be about your last year, your crowning glory, if you like, your level 3 of your history degree, where you hone in, you focus in, and you produce your original piece of research. So year one, I've talked about as a process of acclimatisation. What does that mean in effect? Well, it'll mean that you're settling in still. There's no point in assuming that you'll become a fully cultivated, a fully sophisticated historian straight away. So it's about remembering what I talked about in the earlier podcast, about taking some of the skills and even topics and ideas that you used at A-level and refining those in your first year. But it's also, remember that key phrase about being open-minded and experimental. Take on board new topics, take on board new areas of history. And in my experience of a number of universities, I've taught at the Open University, Sussex University, Leeds University, and also been around the country at different conferences and workshops which show me the progress of students. It's my experience that in the first year you tend to get broad, panoramic courses that introduce you to new eras or periods of history. Now here we're talking about something like medieval and Renaissance Europe, an introduction to modern British history. So these are vistas, if you like, of the periods, the debates, the issues that you might find in broad eras of history. So we're not talking specialism yet. We're talking about narrative history, broad surveys of ruptures, revolutions, transformations in history. So it's in those situations where you'll find the new periods, the new issues, the new approaches. But to be good at these courses, and this is very important, is you have to be open-minded. And that means not striding into university saying, I want to be a modern historian. I hate medieval history. I only want to do military history. These things will tend to hold you back. So as well as these panoramic courses that introduce you to whole new vistas, landscapes of history, there'll be the more refined courses that pinpoint the skills that you'll need for your 3 years as a history student. Now these will tend to be workshop-based, allowing you to really grapple with primary sources, to look at historiographical debate, I'll be talking more about that in a second, or simply to understand the mechanics of writing very good history. Presentation, quotation, proper referencing, structuring essays, presentations, and even exam answers in a way that will make you an effective communicator. So, year one then, it's about acclimatisation. It's about balancing a broad, panoramic, intellectual landscape with these focused, skills-based courses. What are the kind of things that you're going to be doing then as a year one history student? Well, let me summarise it for you. You're going to be entering an expert research community. You're going to be introducing yourself to new time periods and new approaches to history. You're also going to be refining your skills, sometimes with one-to-one as well as group guidance from your tutor. It's about settling in, it's about getting to the feel of things as a historian, and in beginning to participate and engage in this research community. So year one will make you feel as though you belong to this community to some extent. It's about settling in, as we've discussed, but it's also about shaping your identity as a university scholar rather than an A-level pupil. The big difference between pupil and scholar is something that's running through these podcasts and is something that you should take away as a very serious transformation of identity, if you like. Year two, let's try and explain the leap, the step up that you'll encounter in year two. Now, there'll still be a great deal of choice. In fact, year two at universities often leaves you to select an array of courses that are more suited to your particular interests. Now, these will tend to be tighter, more focused courses, driven more by the research interests of the academics involved. So they'll tend to keep abreast of tighter chronological periods, more focused themes to do, for example, with politics, with monarchy, with dictators, with racial issues, with issues of gender. So you're beginning to narrow in terms of the approach that your tutor and therefore you are taking as a historian. The most important thing, talking generally about university level 2 courses, year 2 courses, is that you're invited, you're beckoned in to deal with historiographical debate. So historiography, what does this term mean? It's often a term that scares students because it reverberates through historical study at university. Philosophically, it might mean a way of understanding the process of history or system of history. Some people like to see history as a cycle, a developmental process, an incremental process. Others would like to see it as a back and forth, mutable, malleable, ever-changing progress of time. But actually, at this level, what you need to be thinking about is the other meaning of the word historiography. And this essentially means the debate that historians and scholars have with each other about a given theme, topic, or period. Now, level 2, year 2, is when you're invited, you're beckoned into this debate and are asked to contribute with zest and enthusiasm to a debate about a historical controversy. Now, this means that you've got to refine the skills that you've been developing at level 1. At level 1, you become very good at epitomizing a historian's views, quoting that historian, even engaging historians in a kind of conversation about a particular topic. For real historiographical subtlety, and this tends to be a level 2 skill in my experience, you need to start examining, evaluating, and critiquing the historians that you read. So you'll quote them, certainly. You'll distill their opinions and repackage them to some extent. But the students who get the best marks at level 2 tend to really get involved with analysing, evaluating, and at their most sharp points, throwing in an edge of critique or criticism. That's how, in the end, you define your voice as a historian, and situate yourself in relation to other historians. You've joined the scholarly community, now it's time to participate it and define yourself within it. So the top tip for level 2, I would say, is certainly read those historians that you've been invited to read. Distill their opinions, quote their opinions, but start defining your own voice in relation to them too. Critique, analyse, evaluate.